So in talking to my friends, those two friends that I had at my workplace, all of a sudden a blue Ford Taurus pulls in with jet black tinted windows. It was a very dark navy blue color. It pulls up beside my business, and a black Army sergeant gets out and comes into my place of business. He doesn't pay much attention to us. He walks to the side and begins to scratch off lottery tickets as he buys them. We had a machine that you had to buy lottery tickets from. We didn't sell them across the counter. We sold them out of a particular type of machine. So he was standing off to the side, scratching lottery tickets as I blurted out about UFOs and aliens to my friends and what I had found out and what I knew. And it was real uncommon for me to tell people about it, but these two guys I knew and had already discussed it with before. So it was always good for me to be able to relinquish some of the things I knew to other people, because I always felt that it helped me out as far as on a personal basis. Now, as I'm telling all these things I know about UFOs and aliens, the Black Army Sergeant comes out, points at me, and motions me over to him. Of course, everyone in the room can hear what he's saying to me, and he told me, he said, "Son, you have no idea what you're talking about." "Believe me, I know." I said, "Sir, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've spent enough time studying it, and there's no way you could tell me any different, even though you're an Army man. I understand about UFOs and that it's being kept a very big secret." He relayed to me real quickly, and believe me, he had the patches to prove he had to have been sergeant, commander, or above that. It was weird to me. The car bared government tags. How many dark blue Ford Tauruses with jet black tinted windows and government tags do we see? And I wasn't on the interstate. I was on an off-beaten, we'll say, two-lane highway. So I found it kind of strange that he would come into my place of business and tell me bluntly to not talk about UFOs. But I told him straight up, right there in the place of business where I worked, I said, "There's no way you can discourage me from talking about UFOs, because I know the truth and I will spread it." And he told me at that very moment, he said, "Son, you're in a lot of danger. Your family's in danger. Your wife, everyone, your mother, your father, quit talking about UFOs. If you don't quit talking about UFOs, then definitely I'm going to tell you what's going to happen." He said, "You will be killed. And if you are not killed, you will be ridiculed to where no one will believe in you anymore." He said, "I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to stop talking about UFOs. And if you don't, I promise you, very soon, they'll either kill you, or you will not have a job, or nothing. You will lose everything. I promise you this." Of course, I always was a more modern, should we say, moderate individual. It wasn't very good to be going around giving me orders. Not even my highest boss give me that many unlikable orders. I was the type of person that I always worked on my own, and I always worked best on my own, and I always provided sufficient things, we'll say, to be the best. That's why I was paid more than people that had worked for him for 35 years. Me, someone who had only been there a couple of years, made more than the man who had worked for 35 years. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So it kind of seemed like my life at work began to turn into turmoil over a month's time. One of my, we'll say, higher supervisors came to me, and I don't know why, and asked me, had I been abducted? Now, that was kind of strange, being that I didn't really talk a lot about abduction or anything like this to my higher bosses, because I thought it was bad for business. I only talked about it to a few friends. I didn't blurt it out to everyone I knew, just a few friends. It just so happened that day that he came in, I actually thought I might get to the truth with some Army commander or sergeant in my place of business. But I did get to the truth very quickly. And the truth was, I knew what I was talking about from the word go. He knew I knew. He knew so much that within 2 months, my supervisor had came to me and asked me, did I think I was abducted? And I told him I really wasn't positive I had been abducted. At the time, I was having experiences, and I really wasn't sure. And I sure wasn't going to lie about it like he would have probably liked me to do. But I wasn't, because I had learned so much, and so many weird things was happening to me, that I decided that I had to tell him the truth. I had no choice, because everyone knew around where I was at that I was talking about UFOs. Of course, that day didn't bode over very well, but I still had a job. But within a couple of months, I lost everything. I lost my job, my home, my cars, everything was being completely ridiculed by everybody. No one believed in me anymore. Now, the most amazing thing to that was, here I am with my family out on the street, practically on the street. If it hadn't been for my own mother and father, we had nowhere to go. Mom and Dad, there's never been anything like it, and never will. Now, to go on with this subject, a few months passed. I was still having experiences. They were coming and going on a daily or every other day basis. I had made connections between even God, the Bible, and aliens. And I was talking about it to my friends very openly, except I didn't have any friends anymore. I'd lost my business, moved 25 miles away, and it was like I had very few friends. Most people don't like to be around people who discuss or talk about aliens or UFOs, even if it has to do with the truth about everything. Everything that we've all known to exist for as long as we've lived. I made many connections between the Bible and UFOs. These experiences continuously kept coming, kept coming, kept coming. It was like I couldn't stop them. It was like they was even getting more powerful. And on May 31st of this year, of this particular year I'm talking about, I had reached a point where if I had an experience or was beginning to have an experience, I tried to get away from everyone, because a couple of people in my family could actually feel when I was having one of these experiences. My wife definitely, which I really don't want to even discuss at the time, but I am saying that my wife definitely knew something was happening. She could smell it also. But it very much put her in fear, terrified, just like most are terrified. But through my study, I had learned not to be so terrified, because there are many things that we all need to know about. And through my contemplation of it all, I had found out that there was some truth about God and the UFOs. Now, no one else much wants to relinquish this. Most people will say that aliens are demons. And I'm going to really tell you that I'm not too far off from there, but I do not believe they are demons. In the Bible and many places they are spoke of as jinn. Well, believe me, there's good and bad in everything. And as I begin to tell this story, I have been in fear. But today, May 1st, today, April 1st of 2013, is the day God has chosen for me to tell this. So, I'm coming to you at free will. Free will of He has given me the power to tell you about the truth after hiding it for quite a while. Now, on this particular date of my abduction, which would have been May 31st, actually it would have been June 1st, it was about 1 a.m. in the morning, and I had been having feelings of pressure, and they was coming and going, and I was having the electrical smell, and it was really weird. They began to get stronger and more powerful, and it was like I'd never felt them be so powerful. I'd actually set up half the night studying when it was around maybe 4:15 a.m. and I decided to get ready to turn in for the night. And at this time, the feelings just kept coming on and coming on. It was like I couldn't stop them. They was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And as I began to retire for the evening, I had went into the bedroom and sat down on the edge of the bed and was sitting there having these feelings that was so strong. I was trying to get them to go away so that I could relax for a minute, so that I could lay down to maybe take a nap. Remember, it was 4:30 a.m. when all of a sudden the room burst of brilliant light. Through the windows, the room lit up so bright it looked as if a million lights shined in the room at one time. I was frozen. I could not move. I remember a beam of light, and I remember being carried up by this beam of light. And this beam of light was a bluish green type of color. It was a hue like I'd never saw before in my life. And as I went up, I could see the UFO above me. And that's the last thing I remember at this very moment. So, up to now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that this is all beyond normal. There is nothing about this normal. Normal people do not have these experiences. So I'm saying to you, believe me, none of you want to experience this type of abduction. There is no way. So always mark that down. Don't talk too much, because if you do, all these things that I've portrayed can happen to you. Now, my next recollection in my abduction was that I came to, and I was in this dark tunnel. And as I looked up, I was laying on the side of a tunnel, and it was rigid from top to bottom, really peculiar. And there was a walkway in the center, and it was almost pitch dark. And there was this peculiar type of smell. I've smelled it before. It was actually sulfur. I know what it was because I've smelt this smell before. It was sulfur. I looked around. It was pitch dark. I couldn't hardly see anything. The tunnel almost looked man-made, like maybe a cupboard that goes under a highway. But yet not. Our cupboards are made out of steel and more defined. But this cupboard was completely different than anything I'd ever saw before. As I was laying there getting up, I felt of it. It had a different textured feeling to it. It wasn't steel. I don't know what it was. I'm still not sure, but it was dark. But way, way down, hundreds of feet below me in this tunnel, I could see a small speck of light. And I thought, wow, this really must be the way out of this tunnel. I looked both ways. Of course, I couldn't see one way. It was pitch dark. And I was scared. I remember this very vividly. I was so scared. I'd never been so scared in my life, I do not believe. It was just this ominous feeling that I couldn't even put in words to you all. So you must understand what I'm saying. It was a very ominous feeling. So I began to traverse toward the light, downward in this tunnel. And as I traversed down in this tunnel, I could see the light. And the closer I got to the light, I began to notice that there was something laying along the walls of this tunnel on both sides. What was it? It was so peculiar. It was something that I really don't know what it was. So I had stopped, and I was maybe 200-300 feet from the end of the tunnel. I was getting very close. The sulfur smell surrounds me. It's like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain how strong this smell was. It wasn't the electrical smell, it was definitely sulfur. So the tunnel was all nasty and wet too. The top, the bottom was dripping with water. It was a very, very ominous feeling that I had. So as I creeped closer, not getting more than, we'll say, 300 feet to the end of the tunnel, I kept seeing all these peculiar objects that lined the walls. It was so strange. There must have been thousands, if not thousands, of things laying on the edges of this tunnel. I did not know what they was, so I bent over and I picked one of the objects up. And as I look at these objects, it is really uncanny because I've never seen anything like it. It almost resembles bones. So I reached down in the pile and I pulled one out. And I thought, what is it? I have no idea. What is it? I swear I believe it's bones. But I'm just not sure what it is. Is it a bone? Or is it not a bone? I'm not sure. I've always kept this secret.